Hello, everybody. I'm Greg. I'm your host, and this is Mariner Spirit. And tonight we have a great guest. But before we bring her out, I'm going to go ahead and mention a few things that I normally do, but some of them are pretty important. Number one, it's the people that I support. And I support Potographs, which is a group that work different events and Paracons, and it's Tim Miley and his wife Lauren. And it all started out with Tim and he had a pup and lost the pup and didn't know what he was going to do and decided that he was going to go ahead and came up with an idea of going ahead and having a picture of him and his pup, and he would sign him and bring him to the Paracon, and he started raising money that way. And then he got this other idea of going ahead and actually doing events. And he would have some of the best speakers around. And they all went ahead, and I've been to two of them, I believe. And it's a great event. If you get the opportunity to run into Tim and the people that work with him, it's really, really great. And all the money that he makes at these events all goes back to animal shelters and things of this nature, pets. And then the second one is PKC, Paranormal Kicks Cancer. I still haven't talked to him. I'm going to try to get a hold of him before Christmas. And it's Chris Gaskowski and Alex Wilkinson. And they're from down in Florida. And they do basically the same thing. They raise money through events. They'll do events. They'll do haunted houses. They'll do all sorts of spooky type things at the Fourth or at Halloween, and they'll raise money, and all that money goes back into cancer research. So those are the two right now. I have a third one, but I haven't been given the go yet on it. So as soon as I get that, we'll be back in it. And the second thing I want to mention is something that is pretty important to me, because it's a lot people that have been on the show that have gone ahead and have written books, and a lot of them deal with most of them deal with the paranormal. So the first one I want to mention is Bruce Holliday. Then I have Tobias Wayland, Adam Benedict, Kathy Kressel, Barnaby Jones, Sherilyn Cotter, Dr. Heatherly Langdon, Lynn Monet, Ron Iacovetti, Victoria Munday, Tony Rathman, Natalie Jones, Patty Negri, Sylvia Schultz, Amelia Cotter, Rex Nielsen, David Sloan, Christina Bloom, D.A. Wysong, Joseph Hellant, and Dr. Rebecca Foster. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Miranda Young, who's the ghost biker, and she's I've had her on, I think, about maybe 3 times already, and it's been amazing. And it's welcome to the show, number one. And if you want to start out and just go ahead and give somebody a little idea of what you have coming up for next year.
Sure, sure. Well, Greg, thank you for having me back on the show. This is it's an honor to be back on and get to chat with you tonight. So yeah, we've got a lot going on. We just wrapped up season 8 of Ghost Biker Explorations back in October, and so that was a 5-episode season where we did every bit of that live. And then we transitioned right into the holiday season there at the historic Scott County Jail and historic Rugby After Dark at the two locations that I co-own there with my business partner, Dr. Chrissy Sumner. And so we're just getting ready for the holiday season, gearing up for 2026, doing some prepping for some filming for 2026 for Ghost Biker season 9. And just kind of trying to wind down for the year, but getting things, doing some planning and getting things ready for the upcoming season.
So, were there any big snags last year in what you did? Did anything is anything stand out to you that if you had the opportunity that you would go ahead and do it a little differently?
Um, Not necessarily differently, I don't think. When you do a live season, that always comes with some different challenges, especially when you're someone like me that's used to a little bit of a perfectionist and somebody that likes to. Traditionally, I produced my episodes, and so whenever you do them live, you don't have the luxury of setting everything up, getting it ready. You never know what's going to happen, but that's also kind of a beautiful thing too, because it is live, it is real, it is raw. So I don't think there's anything that I would necessarily do different in that respect, because a lot of the time with those challenges comes interesting revelations and interesting um, uh, things that maybe you didn't quite expect to happen that kind of turn out in its own beautiful and interesting way.
So the spirits were very respondent to you as far as the shows were
Yeah,
concerned.
yeah, they were. So I tend to travel to a lot of different locations that maybe haven't been investigated before, or that have either, if they've not been investigated before, they've either been investigated very few times. And so this season, with it being season 8, we called it Ghost Biker Infinity, because when you flip the 8 on its side, it looks like an infinity symbol. And so, what I was doing with that was I wanted to visit all locations that essentially followed the life cycle. So, first episode, we did old haunted Harriman Hospital, which
Okay.
Ronnie D owns. Now, that one obviously is one that has been investigated before, but I thought, what better location to visit than one where essentially life starts and life ends, and then you've got the tragedy as well as the recovery and everything in between. So it was a good episode to kick things off with. And then each of the locations that I visited followed some important aspect of the life cycle. The second episode was a workplace. We traveled down to Cleveland, Tennessee to a metal refinery. And that one was interesting in and of itself because it had never been investigated before. We did a lot of urban exploration in that one and had some kind of unexpected, crazy things happen there that was totally unexpected and just probably something. And I'll talk about it in a little bit. But one of the things that happened was probably one of the scariest things that I've encountered. And then the next location was an undisclosed home, because I felt like, the home plays an extremely important part in the life cycle. And so connection was something that I was trying to go in and establish, not just connection with the spirits, but familial connection. And so it was a family home that I visited. That location, the activity was a little bit quieter, but it was different. It was definitely different from the week before, but it was more of a family connection and definitely more subtle activity. And then we did a church that used to be an old church and funeral home, and then followed with a live investigation from a local cemetery. So, again, following different important aspects of the life cycle. So, doing those live, you just never know what's going to happen. But I absolutely loved doing that season.
How was the cemetery? And without giving its location off, just I was just curious.
The cemetery was really interesting to me. I've always loved cemeteries. I'm from here in East Tennessee, in a very rural area here in rural Appalachia, and um, what to me was interesting about that is because I kind of cut my teeth in investigating cemeteries, and so this location, I wanted to do, I did not want to give the actual location of the cemetery away because I didn't feel like it was necessarily important. I wanted to pick somewhere that didn't really have anybody necessarily buried in it that had some type of grand legend or folklore. I wanted to see if the cemetery itself, just the nature of that location, would give some interesting activity. And so I believe there was around 150 graves that are in there. A lot of unmarked graves because I think they go back. I believe the oldest was 1832, I believe.
Wow.
And so a lot of field stones, a lot of stones. They're unique to this area. That they call them the crook neck stones. They've got the head and then the shoulders on the stones, and they're so old you couldn't read the inscriptions on them. But through doing some research on that, we did have some Civil War veterans in there. We also had some veterans from the War of 1812 as well as the Revolutionary War that were in there, and some people who were victims of the flu epidemic that came through during I believe it was the 1930s, was when that flu
Okay.
epidemic came through. So, yeah, so nothing, like I said, no big local folklore or legends. However, we did have some. Excuse me, sorry about that.
No, that's
Um,
okay.
we did have some big local legend, or I mean, nothing that was that had big local legends tied to it, but each one of the folks who were inside the cemetery, obviously, they've got their own stories. So I was really interested to see if the nature of the cemetery itself, with all the emotion that's shed inside of a cemetery, if that would essentially bring out some of the different types of activity. We also did it during the full moon, the beaver moon, there in early November. Actually, um, the episode was supposed to be in the last week of October, but because of the weather and because of the nature of it being an outside investigation, we did postpone it to the next week and did it during the beaver moon. So again, trying to see if maybe the full moon played a role in this.
Did you use a lot of spirit boxes when you were in the cemetery?
I did not use the spirit box on this one because I was trying to be as quiet and discreet as possible.
Okay.
I am planning to go back to this particular cemetery and do another live investigation probably early next year. But I've used the Ovilus inside there. I also used, let's say, I used the Ovilus, I used the tripwire, dowsing rods, uh, cat balls. We had to rely mostly on light up type tools because we were trying to be as quiet and discreet as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, as to not disturb any neighbors or anything like that in the area.
So I sort of have the feeling that it was in a pretty rural location. So it was
Very rural.
by itself. But
Yes.
noise carries. So I mean, I understand that. The
We were on
the
top of a mountain. This cemetery itself, it is in a very rural community, and it's right on the top of a mountain. You do either have to hike up to it, or you can take a dirt road that goes up to it, or you can hike. We actually ended up hiking up the mountain to it. It was myself and my friend Christy Sumner. She helped record while I was doing the episode there. I wanted to have somebody with me just because it is so rural out there. But at the base of the mountain were a few different homes, and there were some dogs and other animals. So didn't want to have the spirit box going loud, at least on this
Okay.
venture, because I didn't want anybody to show up, cause any type of unnecessary disruptions. And so I was worried that in order for the camera to pick up the audio from the spirit box, I felt like I would have to have it a little bit louder for the microphone to pick that up. And so I didn't want to do anything that would draw any attention to us.
When you were asking your questions, were they pertaining to certain groups? Like, did you do it to the guys from the Civil War? And did you ask them pertinent questions about, if you probably couldn't see when they died or anything?
Not when the lights were off. So what I initially did was I had 2 different tripwires, and I put those in different parts of the cemetery, because my thinking was that I have pretty good luck with the tripwire, and so I was hoping that the tripwire would trip in certain areas to direct me to certain stones. Now, interestingly enough, tripwire never lit up. Neither one of them lit up at all during the course of the investigation, which is a little bit unusual for some of the investigations that we had had this season. We've had pretty good activity from it, but it didn't light up. I also put multiple flashlights throughout on the different stones, as well as cat balls. And so started asking different questions to see if I could get someone to um, trigger one of those lights to direct me to where I should start. And ironically, one of the questions was about if they were a military veteran, and or a military war veteran. And the first flashlight that lit up when we asked that question actually was a one that had a military stone that was from the Civil War. So then that directed us to start communicating directly with the person in that area. So I started off pretty general and tried to narrow it down. We actually had a couple people who were in the audience watching that hit on a couple names, and ironically, right in front was somebody of the name that one of the intuitive people watching in the audience had called out. So that kind of led us in the direction to asking those particular questions as well.
Oh, I bet you there's nobody that's in the comments section right now that doesn't want to watch that episode.
Well, that's been the beautiful part about doing these live is I started with season 6 doing live episodes because I wanted to it sort of came out of the fact that our busy season at the Jailhouse Museum is there in October. And so I thought, well, I don't really have time to produce the episodes like I was producing them in the previous seasons. So I thought, why don't I do these live? And that was kind of a happy accident to do, because it gave us the opportunity to really have these very cool interactive live sessions. And I feel like the collective with the folks who were watching in the audience, that we were able to really pull out some really unique and interesting evidence because of the questions that was being asked. We were able to do, we did a three-way Estes session one
Oh, wow.
season, and we were able to actually get responses to the questions from just, or excuse me, we were able to get responses from the spirits just from questions that were being asked when we would pull them up on the screen without even vocalizing the questions. The person who was blindfolded with the noise canceling headphones on was giving responses to the questions that the audience was asking, which was to me was incredible. We did um, a poker game with the flashlights there at Hey Good Meal with Brandon Cooper.
Yeah.
Um, that was such an intriguing flashlight session. We were getting very intelligent and spot on responses during this poker game by playing it with the flashlights. So, and then it also gave us the opportunity to really promote these locations that maybe people hadn't heard of, and we were able to use the lives to promote those. Season 6, we did all museums, heritage centers, and old home places. And then in season 7, we did all antique shops, oddity stores, and collection stores or collection shops there in North Georgia. So it gave us the opportunity to really theme the seasons and really interact with the folks in the chat room, making it probably my favorite way to do the episodes. I've always loved the produced ones, but being able to interact with everyone live was just really special. And I think the evidence in the seasons actually ended up showing that.
And now, how were your responses in the antique stores and that?
So that was probably my favorite season of all time, going to these antique stores. And so my I was looking at it through several different lenses, actually. So each of those antique shops had an interesting history. One was a funeral home. One used to be the site of an old, not a boarding house, but a recovery center. The um, the comic book shop. It was the site of an old bank as well as a five and dime store. So each of these antique shops or stores, they had their own history before they became what they currently are. So I was interested to see, was the activity that we were going to get based on the history, or was it based on some of the items that were inside of these stores? And of course, each place was different, but one thing did remain the same of all these locations, that whatever was in each of these places was definitely intelligent, and also had some strong connections to some of the specific items inside of each of these shops, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go ahead and make a point of discipline myself in the respect of going ahead and making sure that I'm watching your show.
Oh, well, thank you.
I
Thank you.
seriously, because there's not a lot of them out there that produce the quality of a show like yours.
Well,
And
thank
I've
you.
noticed that from way back in the day. And it's great that you've gone to this height as far as what you're doing with the lives, because I was thinking about that a couple years ago, and then I thought
Mhm.
I'm going to trip and fall, sure enough, and it's going to be over. And no
It
matter,
is a challenge.
oh yeah,
It really is, because the first year that we did it, and like I said, it kind of came out of um, a I was looking at the challenge of being, owning these locations, and trying to not let my season interrupt my business, and not let my business cause any kind of hiccup in with my seasons. And so I thought the best way to do that, it's like, this way, if I'm doing them live, I'm not having to go in and review all of my cameras and go in and spend the time producing the episodes. And it'll give me the opportunity to be very interactive with the people who watch the shows. And so I went in, and I guess it was kind of a lofty goal, to be honest, because the first season was like, okay, we're going to do these. They're either an old village or like a living village type place, heritage centers or museums. And because I thought I can use this as an opportunity to promote these locations to people who maybe are interested in the paranormal, but didn't know about these places from a historical aspect. So it was a lot to cover because most of these had multiple buildings. It was a lot to cover on a live. And um, Haygood Mill was a good example of this. There's a lot of acreage to cover, and when you're producing the episode, you can go in and you can kind of preset things up, record it, and then you go through and you cut out. I mean, I'm a big fan of showing that things aren't happening, because that's just as important as when things are happening. And so, of course, you can kind of limit that and cut that back whenever you're doing the pre recorded stuff. You can also account for the battery drain or equipment malfunctions or people showing up. We actually had someone show up on that episode right after we went live. So Brandon had to step back and see what
Shush
was
them
going on.
away.
Exactly. So you have all these things that are going on during an overnight investigation, but you're cramming this stuff into to a 3 hour live. And so I had said from the beginning, you know what? I'm at least going to go live for 2 hours. And if something happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's okay, because that's just it's like fishing. You never know. You can go to a well-known spot, but it may not be your night, or they may just not want to communicate with me on this particular night. But there was something really cool. I learned a whole lot about myself through doing these lives, and really I really learned just how forgiving and how great the people who watch my show is, because if when you're in a lot of these locations, you may not have the best service. And so there was a couple times we would be doing the lives, service would drop or equipment would malfunction, and I would have to say, and as a perfectionist, this was really hard for me, but I would have to say, bear with me for a minute. And on one particular time when the service dropped and the battery drained, I was away from the live for like probably 4 or 5 minutes. Seemed like an eternity, but it was only 4 or 5 minutes. And I popped back on, and there was still about 45 people sitting there waiting for me to come back. And so I thought that was the coolest thing, because it made me realize just how understanding and just how great the people who watch my show is, because normally something like that would, as a perfectionist, would really bother me, but it really actually helped me to grow as a content creator and as an investigator, because you know how it is. Expect the unexpected when you're at these places, and equipment malfunction is honestly the norm when you're doing this,
Yeah, it is.
you know.
Oh, wait a minute. I just changed those batteries.
Yes, yes, battery drain.
And they give you that
uh,
look, when you're with other people and they give you that look like, oh, yeah, sure you did.
uh-huh,
And then it
yeah,
happened to them. And then they go,
uh-huh,
oh, yeah, I
uh-huh,
guess you were right.
yeah.
But
And
I
so,
can't, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say, in service, most of these locations, it doesn't matter where you're at, but a lot of these locations um, are not in the best of service, and so whenever you're trying to do that and things get fuzzy or microphones don't work, I mean, there's just a lot of things that can go wrong or that can pose a challenge when you're doing these live. And so it really caused me to go in and like I said, not really, I don't want to say I don't care if we don't get activity. but I like to pick locations or pick techniques or experiments that really allow us to, with the experiments, really allow us to flex our creative muscle to see if we can draw out activity, um, you know, from the type of area that we're at. Or again, just the story or the history itself is I like to pick places that are unique and interesting enough to either draw people to them or draw people to watch the episode, just to learn more about the location. And if we get activity, that's great. But if we don't, that's okay too, because it's just cool to be in this place after hours, seeing if anyone wants to communicate with us or if we can validate the story that's behind the location that we're at.
Well, you have a lot of places. I mean, it's amazing down in the state of Tennessee that,
Oh,
uh,
absolutely.
that rival quite a few other states as far as being the top one. I mean,
Yeah.
history wise too. So I mean, you've got a lot of characters that have gone over the years and left there and came back and you got what do you got? You got Crockett, right?
Yeah, yeah. We've got Crockett, we've got Boone, which,
Boom.
yep, because right here where we're located at, specifically is right on the Cumberland Plateau. And so Daniel Boone National Forest is literally about 20 miles from here, and it expands all the way up into Kentucky because we're about 20 minutes from the Kentucky line. Um, just in this area itself, within a 45-minute range, is four locations, four extremely haunted locations. Um, our location, the historic Scott County Jail, 20 minutes from there, the historic village of Rugby. And then if you go 45 minutes on down south of that, you either hit Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary or Old Harriman Hospital. And then if you we're right on the timeline of Eastern and Central time zone,
You
which would be the divider of Middle and East Tennessee. You go on into Middle Tennessee, and you've got all these great Civil War locations, lots of plantations, as well as old Civil War battlefields, that's located in the Murfreesboro, Nashville area. All of that is within 2 to 2.5 hours from where I'm located. And that literally ranges from the northern border along Kentucky all the way down to the border going into Georgia and Alabama. And so we're very fortunate. And then if you throw in the Native American spots, just here in the Appalachian Mountains is such a unique history that revolves around the old haints and cryptids, that sort of thing. Each region of the country has so many unique hauntings of
know,
itself, whether you're talking about New England with their old history or the Wild West, when you venture on out. Um, but here in this area, here in the South, it's so unique. And it does, you've got such a variety and so many great locations within close proximity.
Ronnie D is an old friend of mine. I think I had
Yeah.
mentioned that before in the past
Hmm.
because he lived right real close to me here.
Hmm.
And when he first got Old South, it
Yes.
was like he was going, come on, Greg, come on, we're gonna go. You go down there for him with 2 weeks, and I look back at that as a big mistake on my part of not taking him up on it
Yeah.
because I could have experienced so many different things. Not that I haven't over the years, but I mean just the
Yeah.
fact that it would have been rolling along,
Hmm.
and the people are great. And
And he
I
does. Oh no, please.
no, he does an amazing job. Okay, and
Yeah.
I can't. When he got Old Harriman too, he was up at the store, and I went into the store, and we were talking, and he says, "Look what I just got," and I said, "What? What?"
Yep.
And,
He has done such a good job, and we're real fortunate to be located within 45 minutes from Harriman Hospital. It's a little bit further. It's about 2.5 hours on down south to Old South Pitt, but well worth the drive. And really, when you look at time, 2.5 hours is not very far, to a great location. And he has just, he's top notch when it comes to his locations here in Tennessee. We're real fortunate to have him.
yeah, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
I know that one of the interesting things that I found up here, because we would hit cemeteries,
Hmm.
and I would be with my one of my old partners, and he would work the tombstones.
Oh,
So
okay.
he'd go from tombstone to tombstone and say, "Hi, Mr. So and so, how are
Hmm.
you today?"
Hmm.
And address them just like they were there, and he was
Yeah.
getting responses. And
Yes.
then one of them, I can't remember their name, but I it was a name that when he said it, he
Hmm.
said it the way it was spelled. And I said, no, that's not how you pronounce it. You pronounce it this way. And then the spirit actually went ahead and gave a correction and pronounced it the way he had originally.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it
That's
was.
really cool. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's one of the things I've really that is one of the reasons I like using the spirit box there in the cemetery, as well as I've grown actually really fond of and become impressed more with my Ovilus 5, with some of the things that I've encountered there. The responses have been spot on there. It really started with the antique shops, but once we started using it in the cemeteries, same thing, going through. But that's really cool that he actually got the pronunciation there
And
of everything.
it was, it, I had a lot of Irish friends out of Chicago, and they
Hmm.
would always pronounce it the other way. So I figured
Okay.
that's the only way to pronounce it, right?
Right.
And I got caught. So it was pretty funny, to say, "Oh, okay, well, if it's his name,
Right.
what are you gonna say now, Mister Man?" It's
Well,
like,
we have that problem around here, especially in this area, because our um, the dialect as well as the accent in this area is actually much different than other parts of Tennessee. And so an example of that is the last name Lowe. You look elsewhere, it's low or lows. Around here, we say it low, like almost like cow. And you can tell when there's someone from around here that pronounces or know where they're from whenever they pronounce it as low versus low, which you would hear elsewhere. So when you can get a EVP or a response that I mean, there's no explanation other than the fact that that spirit is truly from around here. It's pretty mind blowing. It's really a cool capture.
that's par for the course.
Absolutely.
That's it. Just nails it right on the wall. You can't change that.
Absolutely.
When you mentioned before about the Estes, and you
Yes.
mentioned a three-way,
Mhm.
How do you do? We do doubles a lot.
Hmm.
I have Wednesday's show, and we do doubles, and we'll do singles.
Hmm.
But three way, how is that accomplished? Same way?
So very, very close. Yes. So the particular location that we were able to do this three-way Estes session on was it was the Kentucky Heritage Museum up in London, Kentucky. And so typically I'm a solo investigator, but because I was getting to go into some of these locations that typically don't allow investigations, I was able to have some different people come on and help me because they were associated with the location, which was great to see if they bring out activity. So on this particular, this would have been season seven, or excuse me, season six, episode two. I had one of the directors from the London Tourism Commission that was there with me. So she was an enthusiast, but not an investigator. And then I had myself, as well as my friend Tiffany, who helps me on a lot of my investigations. And then I also had my business partner, Dr. Christy Sumner. So there was four of us that were there at this particular location. And the way this building is set up is when you walk in, there's a big room, and then you can go to the left, which is going to go to an auditorium, or you can go right, which will take you into the museum. And both of those sections are closed off by doors. And so I had Tiffany go into the auditorium. She sat in the floor with the noise canceling headphones as well as a blindfold on. And I believe she had the noise cancelers connected to a spirit box. Christy was standing inside of the main foyer area with the doors closed to both of our sections. She had a camera in there and she was pulling up comments on that. I sat inside of the main museum room and I was blindfolded and had noise canceling headphones on. I'm trying to remember if I had a spirit box as well, but I know that the director of the tourism commission, she had the obelisk. And so so we were all sitting there. Christy was pulling up the comments, um and we were each responding. And so because we had the cameras on, we had all three of us pulled up on the screen. And so the people who were asking the questions, so I think Christy was asking questions, and so were the people in the chat room. And she was also pulling those questions up. So, you know, we had a lot going on, but the people in the chat room were able to watch all three screens and see what was going on based on the questions that were being asked. And it was interesting when we all started to come out. Tiffany was the last person to be brought out of the session, and so she couldn't hear us. Um, I couldn't hear anything, and the director of the tourism commission, she was watching on the screen, so she knew when things were happening. But neither myself nor Tiffany knew anything that was going on with either of the questions or what was even going on with the live. And so when we brought Tiffany out of it, she was actually responding to questions of whoever it was on the spirit box was telling her to end the session and to come out of it. Yeah. And she didn't know that we were actually coming in to get her. It was pretty wild.
Do you use time limits for that too?
Sometimes, sometimes, yeah. It just depends. On this particular one, we didn't have a time limit set on it. We were just trying to see, what would happen. we've even experimented a couple times at the jail with doing, I think that's the only time we did a three-way. We've talked about doing a three-way and having people in the different buildings and then on the live and seeing what would happen. But I was actually really impressed. It's just kind of harder to do because I don't typically have that many people with me on my lives to or at least that many physical people with me to uh, to experiment with it. But I mean, I I was pretty convinced after everything that happened that most of the questions that were being asked were actual questions, um, or responses that were coming through were responding more to the collective audience in the chat room versus the questions that Chris was asking herself in that central area, and that sometimes you didn't even have to vocalize the question, just pulling it up on the screen. We were getting responses to when the questions were being pulled up on the screen.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know the way we originally set ours up.
Hmm.
I have people all over that work it. So I have people
Yeah.
from Texas,
Hmm.
south and then up all up the East Coast and everything, and they're all on the show together.
Yeah.
So it's all live, and
Yeah.
it's like it gets crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's to me, that's one of the best ways to do it is to do it live like that because again, it's that a lot of things happen that are hard to explain when that's the case when you're doing it that way.
Have you ever used, the Delco goggles that came out like last year?
Only once. I did it at the Hotel Metropolitan. I used the Delco goggles. I'd like to kind of dive into that a little bit more. And that was not part of a live. It was actually part of a public investigation that I was part of with. There were several other folks there. We were leading this investigation there, and one of the guys he brought some of the goggles, and it was cool.
We have three pairs in the group.
Oh, that's cool.
So when we do the sessions, we usually have one person in each double will go ahead and wear them. But we do sessions that are 30 minutes long.
Okay.
So that could be a little wearing,
Yeah.
but they were meant for uh, sight deprivation, and at the same time they were meant to be used after the God helmet
Yes.
in a form of remote viewing.
Hmm.
And so that was entirely different than anything we've done.
Yeah. They also had they had a God helmet there at the Hotel Metropolitan as well on that particular investigation. But honestly, I did it, and of course, I was only under on that one for maybe a 10-minute session, maybe. I don't even know if it was that long. I didn't really I didn't really experience anything when I used that one. But again, doesn't mean it's not doesn't work or what have you. That would just that one particular time, I didn't really have anything interesting for me happen with that.
The connection that I was making was the fact that Greg and Dana Newkirk,
Hmm.
okay, when they would do their sessions,
Hmm.
they would do like one night they would do a god helmet, and it would be Dana, and she
Okay.
would do that, and then the next time they would do it, the next night they would do another session, and that's she would use regular sleeping type, those,
Hmm.
but they'd have
Yeah.
holes cut in them, and they'd have ping pong balls that were painted red,
Hmm.
so they were getting nothing but the red light.
Hmm.
So it's a little different from the other part, but it was
Hmm.
all meant to the same thing. And she was picking things up because
Hmm.
at that point that they were working on that, it all came out of part of the Hellier series.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was all part of that experimentation stuff that they did for that. But you know, your work is amazing. I
Thank you.
when I think about the years and where you've been and what you've done, and I've always questioned you on your motorcycle,
Hmm.
okay, on your bike, and how you could go ahead and leave a location
Hmm.
at 3:30 in the morning and get on your motorcycle and ride. And I didn't even put two and two together and say, well, you always had somebody behind you.
Not always. Not
Not
always.
not always.
Not always. No. Sometimes. I vary it up from episodes. It just depends on the location. Some locations were there for much longer. Other times it's a shorter period of time. When we were doing the produced episodes, um, Josh, my videographer, was with me. He's not a biker, and so that does help with the camera equipment and some of the larger cameras. But yeah, it just depends. But for me, I try to pack. Uh, Being a biker, that helps me to pack and plan for the locations better and really be able to whittle down my equipment, whittle down what I'm wanting for, yeah, when it comes to trigger items. I actually did a presentation at Goblin Con specifically paralleling uh, paranormal investigating and motorcycle riding. And for me, now it doesn't always work for everybody, but for me, it's a perfect fit. I mean, that's I investigate the way that I ride, and so because it is something that whether you're investigating or whether you're riding a motorcycle, you have to be focused on where you're going and everything that's surrounding you, because more times than not, you're having to worry about the other people versus yourself. And so it's the same thing with investigating. You have to, protect yourself. You have to plan. So I I did that presentation, and I showed some of my packets how I've created these little kits that allows me to um, deploy certain cameras as well as different tools, and they fit in my saddlebags of my motorcycle. Um, so yeah, it really helps me to plan things out for the investigations and not have more equipment than what I need, and or that I'm going to use at a location, and
Like
really plan out those trigger items too.
the reason I asked that is because it specifically was, when you go ahead and you have like three or four people, and we're all
Hmm.
leaving Illinois and we're going down to Tennessee, we're going to
Hmm.
wherever we're going, and
Hmm.
everybody comes out and they have every piece of equipment that they ever had,
Yes, yes, and
even the stuff that doesn't work. But
absolutely. And I think that the equipment is one of our, I'm trying to think of my wording. I think that equipment is one of those things. There's a lot of unnecessary pieces to it, and I try not to let equipment become a crutch. I want to and really use what I like. Now, obviously, you never know. Sometimes when you go to these locations, what tool is going to be preferred by the spirits that's gonna just work that night. You never know. But I think sometimes we become too reliant upon equipment, and essentially, we get lost trying to set things up, spend way too much time trying to use the biggest and best and greatest of equipment when really, sometimes you might get more with the simplest tool, you know.
And
Um,
that's yourself.
yeah, yeah.
I
Hmm.
the reason, and before I go any farther, are you okay with going longer?
Yeah, I can go a little longer. Yeah.
Okay. I
Hmm.
just wanted to ask that before,
Hmm.
and then I just want to interrupt for a minute because there's some people in here that
Hmm.
have been saying quite a bit, and one of them's Bob Burnell from up
Oh,
on the east, and Bob is saying how big of a fan he is with you, and
I
you know,
adore Bob.
Bob is a great guy. I've been trying to have him on to do some Estes work, and I think
Yeah,
he
yeah.
came on once with his partner, and
Hmm.
that was the only time we got. And I would love to have Bob back in a heartbeat. No problem.
Bob is fantastic, and I have to say he's one. He is almost always on the live episodes. If he's not able to make the live, he's always watching the replay and sending feedback and just so supportive. And like I said, it's folks like Bob and Joe and Sonia, James, all of these folks that tune in every week. And they don't know necessarily, because I'll give my theme out, but I won't give my location out when I go to investigate. And so um, they're really good and quick to come up, once they find out where I'm at, to come up with questions and come up with ideas of things to try. And I feel like those questions are really what brings out a lot of that activity, is just that interaction during those lives. So I can't say enough good things about Bob and the folks that tune in every time we do a live.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention some names real
Sure.
fast. You got Adriana Trudel, she's from up in the East Coast, and Carol Garcia. A lot of these people are people that work with my group. Uh, Sonia Thompson or Thompson Sonia. Hi,
Sonia Thompson.
Sonia Thompson. Okay. Kim Baranski's here, Josh Baransky. Then you got, and Bob Burnell's got the nickname of Thirsty Tom. And then Mary Lynn Bass is here.
Yeah, Mary Lynn.
Holy cow. Good to see you. A lot of Joanne Stewart's here, Joe Mazzell, maybe.
Mhm.
Uh, I just wanted to make sure that I hit everybody. And Kim, like I said, a lot of these people work with me on Wednesday, and they're all great people.
That's
And
wonderful.
it's uh, it's great to have them, to be able to have a person like you on. Especially, and I could ask you 15 different questions all on spirit boxes and spirit box work and Estes and stuff like that. I did have a question, and then I forgot it because we were in the middle of talking about those sessions. And
Mhm.
you know, when you get that involved in it, sometimes you have to just go ahead and take a couple feet back and just relax for a minute, and then it'll just come back to you. Especially if
Absolutely.
especially if they want you to know.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. And I think that sometimes things can get too rushed, and that is one of the challenges with doing the stuff live too, is because and that's where it pays to have understanding people that are watching the live. Because again, if you're just producing an episode, you can sit there and you can do your session, you can take a break. There's no taking a break on these lives, because you do there is I mean, obviously people aren't going to sit around if it's not something they don't enjoy, or if they're not getting something from that. And so sometimes if somebody's not a seasoned investigator, or if they don't have the time to spare, and you're sitting there and things get kind of slow, you have to know when to move on and when to, kind of wait it out and try again. That can always, that can always cause cause a challenge when you're doing those lives, to
Right.
be able to do a true session.
When we started out and we were talking about some of the old people that I worked with, and every year some of us get together for a Christmas party, and that's
Okay.
usually we'll discuss places that we want to go, and there's like five of us, and we'll just do one or two places. Last year we did, I want to say it was Trans Allegheny,
Hmm.
and then we did old the hospital on the old hospital on College Hill in
Hmm.
Virginia, I think it is.
Yes. Yes.
It's pretty much brand new. There has been,
Yeah. Few years old. Yeah.
so we did those, and the questions that were brought up were the fact that the people that work with me were wondering. Oh, here, Joe Mazzell, that's his name. He said hi. Uh, I am I am interacting live like the night of the at the jail, and everyone in the chat saw a dark shadow in the hallway behind you, Miranda.
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
wild.
That was a really incredible piece of evidence. And we actually show that on our flashlight tours. Because I was the only person there inside the jail. Chris was moderating it. She was actually in Virginia, and she was moderating the live while I was there. And sure enough, there was this shadow figure. It literally, there was about 50 to 55 people watching that live, and shadow figure just walks across, blocks out the lights on the floor. It literally walks across, and it's almost like it comes and stops right in front of me, and then it just dissipates in midair right there. And Chris saw it. Now I didn't see it with my own eyes, because sometimes the camera will pick things up. But it's funny, before it happened, you actually hear me say something about I had gotten chills um, just before this happened. And sure enough, when you slow it down, because Chris said, "Oh my gosh, did anybody see this?" And so we went back and looked right after. Both she and I pulled it up, and sure enough, you see it. We slowed it down, and I even went so far in when I was analyzing the video there. If you take the shadow out, or the black and the shadow out, you actually will see a mass just walk, and it just stops. And you can see what looks like the back of a head and shoulders. It's pretty incredible. It does not set the tripwire off. The K2 was going off well before that, but it blocks it out and then just disappears in thin air. So yeah, that was pretty wild to actually experience on a live. So
That both of them,
um,
even Bob went on and said that was a great episode.
yeah, yeah,
And
that one was cool.
I'm going to have to go ahead. I'll reference it with you later on, and you can
Absolutely,
send it which one it is, and I'll go ahead and look it up and watch it, because
absolutely.
I got to start catching up on what you've been doing, because I feel like I feel bad because I'm not really 100% up to date with everything that you do, because I'm so busy too.
Well,
You
and
know,
that's the thing. A lot of investigators don't always get to watch and keep up to date with other investigators because they're out investigating. That tends to be a common thing. So I totally understand. I'm the same way. I'm and throw in, with two locations, it's hard for me to get to watch the content that I used to enjoy getting to watch because I never the only time I really get to listen and sit and watch anything is when I sit down to eat. And that may be a 15 to 20-minute thing during the day. And other than that, I'm not out and about. Um, I'm out and about investigating or putting content together. It is hard to support other investigators, especially when you're out investigating, doing your thing.
right. Uh, Another person that you had run into out at Haygood was Rex
Mhm.
Nielsen.
Yes. Yes. I
Big
I
Rex.
adore Rex. Big
He
Rex.
he's part of the team on Wednesdays. I finally got him to
Okay.
go ahead and do that, but he had reconstruction done on his shoulders, so he had last Wednesday off. But he's an amazing, for him never really doing a lot of Estes.
Hmm.
It was he's come on real strong. And one of the points that I was going to make about when you do it, and not that you probably haven't done it, but when we replay the show, we
Hmm.
have certain people like Carol Garcia.
Hmm.
Carol will replay the show the next day, and then she'll go ahead and tell me how many EVPs she picks up
Yes.
above and beyond that. So have you run into that
I
with what?
have. Yes, and that's one of the things that I hope to do with the episode. So I also put static cameras out while we're doing this to get several different points of view, as well as people who watch. And so what the goal is with the lives is to go in, do the live for 2 to 3 hours, however long we're getting interaction for, and able to be live at the location, and then I try to do a couple hours of investigating where I'm not on the live, because I feel like all of that plays into the type of activity you get. Sometimes you're going to get more stuff when you're doing a live. Other times, you're not going to get as much when you're doing that. And so I have people who will reach out and send me timestamps of things that they've seen when they go back and watch. And
Wow.
so the goal is to actually go in and take these lives and create produced episodes from this, because it is harder for someone. Um, if we're being real and honest about it, it's not always as exciting if you're catching it on the replay, because you're not getting that interaction with the spirits or that interaction with the live individual, myself or whoever else is with me. So sometimes it's like the retention rate is great when I'm doing these lives. People will stay on for the full amount of time that I'm on, but I don't get as much of a playback response because, again, you know, uh, to sit down and watch a 3 hour live, not everyone has the time for that. So, my goal is to go in, make a produced episode from that, where I kind of cut down and play more of, here's some of the things we captured, and here are the timestamps, highlighting the people in the audience that sent me the timestamps, calling them out, and then also going in and throwing in some unseen footage from some of these static cameras that we used either during the live or during the time that we investigated after. So it actually gives me the opportunity, if I just have the time, it gives me the opportunity to have more content.
That's what we've been discussing that for the last probably since June about
Yeah.
going ahead and just doing it on the EVPs.
Yes, just I mean, because you could probably have a full show just on the EVPs that you're capturing during the live,
Yes,
that you don't know or
right.
experience. And that's so great that Carol is going back and doing that because
She
that's a
does.
huge help.
She does an amazing job that way. She always has. She says, yes,
Mhm.
a lot of times some of us hear the EVPs while we're live.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
They just want to join. They want to join the party,
Hmm.
for some reason.
Absolutely.
But it, Tom or Bob Burnell says, "Amen, Joe. I feel the same."
And thank you, Joe. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Joe's. I've never met him, but it's great that he's here.
Yeah, Joe's been watching my show. He was one of them from very early on, very in around the very beginning. I want to say from season 2, I think, maybe even before that. But he's correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. I believe Alabama, and he's won on just about every live, whether it be my podcast or the podcasts we do from the jail or any of our live episodes. Um, like I said, I couldn't ask for, and it looks like you've got such a great group as well. It's the same. We've got a lot of the regulars that tune in, and it's really cool to know that people, actually give of their time, and spend their time to watch the content and watch what you're doing and interact with you. It's a really cool and humbling feeling to know that you know people spend their time or take of their time to do that.
Okay, it's about time. We're holding you back from doing what you need to do tonight. Being in the great state of Tennessee, there's a lot more to do down there than it is up here in Illinois. That's for sure. But anyway, it's been amazing having you on. And you know what? I have to make sure that I do it more often.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that,
You
and
know,
thank you for having me on, Greg. Um, and Carol ask what night I go live. So I'm live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page or YouTube channel. We also sometimes go live there on the historic Scott County Jail page, and then some of the season episodes come out on Tuesday nights during the month of October. So, but we post all of that um, throughout the season there on the Facebook page as well as the YouTube channel. So, uh, hope to see you, Carol, and any of the other folks over here.
and thank you everybody in the chat. Joe's on a island on the beautiful Gulf Coast of Alabama. I know it well. I knew it well from back in the military when I was down in Rucker. So he probably knows where that place was, but long time ago. But anyway, thank you very much. It's been amazing having you on, and here's to talking more down the road.
Absolutely.
And if you want to hang for a few minutes, we'll chat for a few minutes off
Sure, sure,
screen. Okay.
sure.
Everybody in the group, thank you very much for being here. It's been wonderful. You guys did a great job tonight. And boy, I'll tell you what, it's great to see you guys here. That's all I have to
Yeah.
say. Have a good evening and have a great weekend. And we'll see you next week. Spirit Connect. Take it easy. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.